All right, welcome back, guys. I want to talk about why I am thinking of selling my BambuLab A1 and AMS Lite combo. It's been a few weeks since I finally got it delivered to me, the BambuLab A1 combo, and I'm thinking about selling it for a couple of reasons. First reason, this was intended to be my primary printer, my only printer, actually. So I was waiting for this to be delivered. It took about, I think, a month or so to get delivered. While I was waiting, I just happened upon a deal for another 3D printer online. I posted videos on that. And since it was literally a tenth of the price of this printer, I paid about all in maybe $550 to $600 for this printer combo. But when I was able to get another printer for about a tenth of the price, I figured, why not try that one, try my hand at it, see if I can get better at it, see if I can learn the nuances of 3D printing and really have a good grasp on it, so that when this printer comes, I could treat it better and be ready and understand how much of a quantum leap this printer would be over the other printer and why it's such a step ahead. Now that I have had some time with both printers and I really got started on the BQ Huracan, which is essentially just like an Ender 3 remake or remix with Clipper in it. And I've also learned a lot more about 3D printers overall in the span of just a few months. It's only been about 2 months now since I've had these printers. And I'm working on fixing my third printer over here, which is another BQ that I got on Facebook for like 30 bucks. Every time I look at this printer now, I'm thinking, yikes. This, for me personally, here's what I would say. If you are someone who is only gonna have one 3D printer, you might as well have one that, something like this, if you're someone who doesn't want to fuss with uploading STL files and putting it on an SD card and then moving it back and forth, and you don't want to figure out how to use something like Clipper or mess with G-code, this is a perfect printer for you. So in my case, I do like. I do love the ease of use. I do love the Bamboo Handy app. I do like that it is portable. I can take it with me literally anywhere. I can be visiting someone and check on my print. I haven't been able to see the actual video while I'm checking on my print remotely, but it does work on Wi-Fi, and it works fairly well. That's probably intentional. I do like the little AMS system. I think that's pretty sleek. But as far as the good points, I do like that it comes preloaded with some STL files. Now to the things that I don't like as much about this printer. I think the price is a bit high, but that's on me. So I think the A1 Mini is a fairly decent price point for this type of printer, and I think that's about a certain cost. The A1, upsizing to the A1, that's really useful if you want the larger print builds, but here's the conundrum that I'm having. So this channel started as a way to do a print shop, to have 3D printed items that I put for sale on different stores and different storefronts and channels. After doing my research and realizing what does sell, unless I have a few items in the shop that are hits and that require multicolor printing, this makes this value proposition less important to me. If I happen to have been, now full disclosure, I did buy this printer just as a hobbyist. I was intending to be a hobbyist, have this as a pastime where I would randomly print stuff. And in that case, having a full-blown AMS with different color changes was useful to me. But since my purposes for the 3D printers have somewhat changed, I realized that once I got tired of printing out my novel things that I wanted, like custom memorabilia from series that I love to watch or shows, emblems, etc., you sort of hit the bottom of the barrel of what you want creatively. And that brings me to the next point. Since I'm a person who's into functional printing and printing things that are useful, functional prints rarely require the use of multicolor. So for instance, if you wanted to have some bag clips, or if you wanted to have vases, or those are functional-esque. But let's say if you really think about the functional prints that you may have seen on YouTube, for instance, many of them are not multicolor prints, even of the more successful channels like Samcraft, etc. They're usually printing out in one color, whether that's green or at very least one type of material. And this is also the other crux of the issue. So one thing that I learned quickly, is just my beginner misunderstanding. You can't mix filament types. So if you need PETG, sorry for moving the camera, if you need PETG, you can't print in PLA and PETG at the same time in an AMS. It's not going to work with the Bambu system, and it probably shouldn't, right? Different heat temperatures. Other issue, for instance, when you're using wood PLA, for instance, I've noticed that the hot end is actually pretty finicky. The one that they include with the box, it's this one right here. I've already taken it out. I've already replaced it with a hardened steel hot end. But what I found more often than not, it's fairly finicky. Easily has issues with extrusion, and I think it's well known and well documented that it's just better to replace it the first thing. I even made a video on that, and I've just found that to be true. But even when I do replace the hot end sometimes, and I'm gonna credit that more to the wood PLA. This is 30% wood pulp, so I'm gonna credit that to this and not really to the printer. But still, I think if I had used, what I read online is if I used a higher or a larger nozzle size, so 0.6 instead of 0.4, there would be less clog issues overall. But back to my point, for me, it's a little clunky for me, to be honest, with the AMS system. So if I want to change colors, etc., it still feels a little bit too manual for my taste. I think with the full AMS that scans the RFID on the spool that you buy directly from BambuLab, I think that's genius. I prefer that system. I don't know if AMS comes with that RFID scanner. If it did, that may change my opinion on it, because having to switch it out and decide this one's brown, this one's white, and then sometimes I'll come back and the colors are wrong because I haven't updated it, that can be annoying. What's also annoying for me, honestly, this is just a nitpick, I really hate the numbering choice on this. I always have to think that it is counterclockwise for the numbering system. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1 up here, 2 down here, 3 and 4. And my mind just doesn't think that way. So if I'm in a situation where I have it miscolored and I don't keep it up to date diligently, and I happen to be remote and wanting to start a print, I literally have to pull up a photo of the AMS light to remember which spool is where. And I have to approximate it in my mind. So that's a little bit annoying. I wish it was automatic. And then let me get to the next point that's important. So I've also did some reading, and I looked up the patents. It seems that BambuLab's coming out with a new version soon. They're coming out with an AMS 2, which might address some of these issues. And they're also coming out with a new printer, the H2S or something like that, codenamed in the patents. So I think that's coming relatively soon. From what I've seen in the reps, it's coming this quarter, so probably before April. So now's a really good time to sell this printer. The other thing that also comes to mind is just the cost of the printer. Out of all the AMS stuff that I could do, when I did use AMS, I have found that the waste, the amount of shear waste this bucket full, nearly, but the amount of waste that I get using AMS is ridiculous. And I know that there are some settings you can use in your slicer to infill it into the models themselves, or you can make extra models out of just the waste material. But honestly, the prime tower and the extra waste, it just kills it for me, because if you're running a print shop yourself, or you're thinking about running a print shop, filament costs money, you know? And just wasting like a third of a spool, I don't know how much exactly, but let's just say, like, just for argument's sake, let's say an eighth of a spool is wasted if you're color changing. And you would have to measure it out and figure it out, but that's models that could be made, it's waste that you can't get back. And from what I've seen on the recycling end of the waste and the poop, there's not really great alternatives for this unless you happen to be making silicone molds out of the waste material. And even then, it becomes an issue trying to recycle the filament waste because you have mixed material. So if you have PLA wood, then you have PLA plus, and then carbon fiber and nylon, and all these different types of filament. And you're printing, you're throwing the poop somewhere, unless again you're organized and diligent and tossing the filament 100% of the time into the right bin for PETG, the right bin for PLA, the right bin for ABS. You're gonna have a mess up. So, and some of these filaments that I have are different material, and they say them on the side. So what I tend to have to do, since the AMS doesn't even allow you to print in different types, even if it's ABS and PLA, ABS and PETG with somewhat similar higher melting points, you can try lying. So I have tried that. I have tried, for instance, printing PETG and a PLA, because I only had white PLA, and I had only purple PETG, and I was trying to make a Mewtwo Pokemon. That print ended up very interesting, let's say, because I said that the white PLA was PETG. So of course it got printed out at a higher melting point. The outcome was it looked over extruded. There was spacing in the white. The purple came out perfectly. So that's nothing to do with BambuLab. That's more to do with the resources I had on hand. But keeping that in mind, the waste for that is mixed. And because, and also in the trash bin I have over here, I have a mix of ABS, I have a mix of PLA, I have a mix of wood. So I could not recycle this if I wanted to, unless I sat here and tried to sort them. And I don't even want to touch the issue of where you have multiple filament types with the same color. So white PLA, white PETG, white nylon, white carbon fiber. I don't even want to touch those issues. So if you happen to use actively multiple types of filament with the same color, good luck trying to sort it and all that. Oof, a chore on its own. So recycling is kind of out of the question. So and the thing is, I'm someone who really likes to recycle. And one of the main reasons why I got into 3D printing, or I've taken such an interest in it, is because of the fact that I could recycle my water bottles, because they're PETG bottles, or they're PET bottles. So I'm still working on that project. It's coming soon, making good progress on it, to recycle the water bottles into PETG filament. But knowing that is where I'm going, the PET bottles themselves only come in one color. I can use the Sharpie colorizer to color them, but trying to make that work with this AMS system ideally doesn't seem feasible. So that's another use case against me keeping this BambuLab A1. Also, I thought about it a little bit more. I took a look at the Maker World. I've been playing around with that. I do love the ability to easily choose a print. What I'm finding though is, while it is convenient to sort of pick a model from the Maker World system, because you're in mobile, really, you have no control over the slicer that I know of. So whatever print you're choosing, it's gonna come as is with the predefined settings as is without any changes you make that you can make other than the filament type. So it's really a cross your fingers and hope that the author made the right slicer settings kind of thing. Next thing I find is, some of this is just user error, so feel free to mention in the comments, but also I learned a little late about the ironing technique. The last few layers of ironing, I think that would help out a lot of these prints. But as far as from what I'm seeing on Maker World and what people are actually making, an AMS, like if you want to use an AMS, it's great if you're like a collector, if you're a cosplayer trying to make really intricate suits or designs, if you're trying to make certain models, and you don't want to waste time painting it or anything like that. I'm not in any of those spaces. In fact, a majority of the people on Maker World don't have AMS, and that's what they don't tell you. Some people have like several AMSs hooked up together, like up to 4, and you can really tell on some models on Maker World because they have like more than 4 colors used, and it seems impossible. But those are higher end users. We're already talking about if a printer costs 300, let's say roughly the AMS costs about 200. If you, for some reason, have an 8-color print, you're already 1,000, 1,500 into the game. So let's not play around. You can easily afford it and do it, and it's a hobby. It would be hard convincing me that all those color choices are for business reasons, unless you're making bank. So with that said, out of these successful 3D print shops I've seen on YouTube, they're mainly using one color or at the very least one spool at a time per printer. I rarely see them multicolor printing at all. Waste of time, waste of filament. And since I want to be a print shop, you have to keep your costs down, your profits and losses. I have a profit and loss sheet already. Right now it's just expenses because I haven't sold anything yet. But this is the biggest line item on my ledger. This, out of the roughly, I think, $800 spent so far, this is $600. So it's a no-brainer for me to sell this one. What I'll probably do next is get a third printer, probably similar to another, just a random bag slinger like these BQs. I might get a, just a different one, sub $100 range. Since I have a good familiarity with Wiz Clipper now, and I understand this a little better, what I'd also like to do is, I've also seen some poor man's AMSs where you manually change it. I have this idea, this concept in my mind that if I would like to try my hand at making a automated color swapping system. I think if you use a Raspberry Pi, for instance, and you are syncing the print, if you're syncing with Clipper the print commands, the G-code commands, I think you could probably automate the color changes that are taking place here. And the manufacturers are probably doing the same thing. So I think that would be a fun project for me to do, since color swapping isn't the main part of my business. And even as a hobby, just printing out, I'm not a collector like that, so I don't need a bunch of plastic tat. I'm a functional printer at heart, So I want stuff that works, and usually that kind of stuff is in multicolor. All right, so with that said, one last note. An add-on that I really wish came out of the box is there are some really nice, let me see if I can zoom in there. There are some really nice brush sets that are on Maker World that clean the brush, and that's really useful for if you have like PLA wood or any stringing. This I printed out of ABS, and it has a nozzle cleaner right here. I think that extra part was missing. I hope that they include something like that in the next version. In the next printer, I also hope they include a collector for all the poop that they are making with these printers. I also hope that they default the option to infill with some of this waste in the future versions of these printers. I'm gonna leave off the controversy with the upgrading and the developer mode stuff. Well documented, everyone knows about that. But for now, I really am a fan, I'm finding, of these Ender style printers. And this is not to knock on BambuLab or A1. These are fantastic printers for what they do and the audience that they're intended for, which is hobbyists, people who just like making stuff. I'm a fan of replicators from Star Trek, so I love the idea of that. But for me, the printer I've had the least issue with, where I could just set it and once it's started, it's going, has not been the BambuLab. It has been the Huracan, the BQ Huracan, which is based on Ender 3. The regular bed slinger has printed out reliably way more prints. So that's the path I'm going down, especially as a functional print shop. So I'm going to be selling this one. Also knowing that a newer version will be coming out later this year, most likely, or if not, before April or during April, Q4, I'm guessing, allegedly. But yeah, if you happen to be a print shop that's selling, by the way, I should mention this, if you happen to be a print shop that is selling signs like sports team, memorabilia, or logos from series that are in light, that you put an LED light around, that can be okay. It makes sense that you have a AMS system for that, because you know those logos require those different colors, etc. But yeah, as far as my uses, I don't really see it being useful for me. In fact, for niches, what I've found is I really like the wood-like substances. So if I got into some sort of quasi-woodworking type of prints for my print shop, I definitely wouldn't need AMS for that. So that's not really useful for me. And any real color items that I need, I can easily design myself as I'm learning these modeling tools. And I can design it in a way that the color snaps in, or I can just glue in the color pieces. So that's really not a problem for me. So if you're a professional, unless you just love the ease of use and love collecting waste, yeah, the A1 or the next model up, I would wait for the next model. I would not buy a A1 right now. I would wait for the next model to come up in the next few months. But if you're a hobbyist or you just love color printing for your cosplay or your color accurate models without needing to paint or anything, any finicking, and you want it to come out of the box excellently, this is a perfect model for you. It's just for my purposes, it's not working. All right, so I know that was a long one. Thank you for sticking with me. Leave your comments below. I'd love to hear from you. What do you think about the BambuLab A1 AMS combo system? I also think that my gripes are mainly with the AMS. For the A1 itself, if I had bought, let's say, the A1 Mini, I would have just eaten the cost because it's a fine printer on its own, especially with just one spool, no problems. So if you're starting out and you only want to print with one spool and you're wondering, should I get the AMS? Should I get the color swapping? I've laid out some reasons why you might like it, why you might not like it. Personally for me, if I only had one printer, I'd probably get this printer, the A1 Mini, without color changing AMS for the reasons I listed. Be easier to maintain, cheaper too. So there's that. But yeah, that's all I have to say about the AA1. I will be getting rid of this one soon, and I will be replacing it probably with another bed slinger. So look forward to that. And I also look forward to reading your comments and your thoughts on the issue. All right. Thanks for watching. Make sure to like and subscribe and follow my print shop journey. Have a great day.